What up, Kane fans? Welcome back to the show. If you're new to the channel, please do me a favor, go down and hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, it's free. It just lets you know anytime I drop new content. So I wanted to come on here really quick and kind of give my thoughts on the portal additions that Mario Cristobal has made to this roster so far, because just the other day, the window for transfer players to transfer to the University of Miami before the spring semester starts has now closed. So I thought this would be a good point to kind of sit back and reflect on the additions that have been made to this team so far. Now, again, this is a rebuild that's going to take time. So there are some pickups that probably weren't super popular, some that were, and the fact that Coach Cristobal hasn't acquired a big-time playmaker wide receiver, people are kind of losing their minds right now. Again, don't panic. You have to be patient. What is the best way to build a football program or build a football roster? From the inside out, right? You start with the quarterback, the trenches, and then you build out from there. And that's exactly what Coach Mario is doing. So, without any further ado, let's look back at some of those key acquisitions, starting with my opinion, the most important one. That most important one was center Matt Lee from UCF. Why do I think he was most important? Well, I think people undervalue the importance of the center position in football. A lot of people look towards the left tackle as the anchor, the most important position on the offensive line. And they might be right. But I think center might be just as important because remember, in addition to just blocking, they make sure everybody's lined up. They make sure they relay signals back to the quarterback. They make sure, they got the right offense for the defense that's on the field. They help the quarterback read the defense. So there's a lot of thinking going on. They're wearing multiple hats when they're on the field. So getting a guy like Matt Lee, who has experience, 2,700 snaps in his career at UCF, played in over 39 games. And last year, listen to this, allowed only 5 quarterback hurries, 1 quarterback hit, and no sacks. That, to me, is an excellent stat line for an offensive lineman. And I know offensive linemen really don't have many stats to go off of. These are metrics that just started getting measured recently in the last few years. His PFF grade, I don't have it offhand, but I think it was like in the low 80s, which is excellent. That's very, very good. So I think Matt Lee is a guy that can come in, give the offensive line an instant boost, an instant upgrade, and an instant injection of not just talent, but experience. He comes from a good program at UCF that have been good for a few years now. So I think if I had to grade that pickup, I would give that one an A. Next, Javion Cohen. I think that's the next most important acquisition. In addition to the talent that this coaching staff brought in from the high school level at offensive line, we're also bringing in some talent from the portal, and Javion Cohen is no different. Javion Cohen, let me start with this, was a 2-year starter at Alabama. So, right there, if he was good enough to start at left guard for Nick Saban, he's good enough for us. This dude, along with Matt Lee, I think changed the offensive line. So if you can line him up at left guard, Lee at center, maybe get a healthy Zion back, plug him in at tackle. And even if you don't, you can kick Jalen Rivers out to left tackle. You got a Nez at right guard, and whoever can play at right tackle, maybe it's Pancake, maybe it's Francis. Who knows? Maybe it's another portal guy we haven't gotten yet. But so far, just those 2 guys alone, I would give both those pickups an A, maybe even an A+, because they were massive positions of need. Next, Devontae Brown, older brother of Damari Brown, who was part of the incoming high school class. His younger brother, Damari, is an elite corner that, comes in from American heritage, and dude's a playmaker. His brother, Devontae, pretty solid. Also comes from UCF, solid program. Good size, 6'2", 185, made 30 tackles, a couple interceptions, and a forced fumble last year. Great ball skills, great instincts, and this is very important, he's a guy that can play man and zone. He's versatile. He's not a guy that's just one-dimensional. Devontae, to me, is plug and play. He's ready to go. He's a guy that you can plug into that one of those cornerback spots as a starter day one. Again, another position we desperately needed talent at. So Devontae Brown, key acquisition. That one, I'd probably give like a B+ grade based on who's out there, who's available. So far, so good, honestly. Then we move over to a Thomas Gore. This dude is a guy that comes from a smaller school, Georgia State. he had decent stats. He had 5 sacks and 8 TFLs last year, forced a couple of fumbles. But I'm going to say, I'm going to mention the elephant in the room. He's very undersized. 6 foot, 270. I don't know what plans the coaching staff have for Thomas Gore. But obviously, if he was able to come in at that size, even at a school like Georgia State, and he can rattle off stats like that, obviously that tells me he is a very hard worker, extremely hard worker. That's a guy that you want in your locker room. That's a good culture fit, okay? And it doesn't take many guys, many bad apples in the locker room to kind of, create some division in the locker room. So that's something that Coach Cristobal's trying to eradicate. A lot of guys left for the portal. And if you can replace, the bottom end of that roster with someone like Thomas Gore, who maybe might not play much, maybe he's going to be relegated to special teams, but he's a guy that's going to put in the work and be a good example, I think that's valuable. Next, Francisco Mauigoa, another older brother of an incoming recruit. Francis Mauigoa is his younger brother. Of course, we all know he's, in our opinion, the top tackle in the country. Recent rankings came out that dropped him a little bit. And by the way, I have to mention this. Most of Miami's high school pickups, high school signees, dropped in the final 24/7 rankings, which I'm not shocked by. Does it matter? No, at the end of the day, you got to develop them, right? So back to Francisco. Francisco comes from Washington State. Decent program. Where does he play? He plays in a Power 5 conference. He plays in the Pac-12. He was rated by PFF as the number 2 linebacker in the Pac-12. I think that's saying something. Whether you put stock in PFF grades or not, I put some stock in them for sure. I think it is a metric to go off of. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all, but I look at other things too. I look at stats. I look at 60 tackles, 5.5 TFLs, 3.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. This dude fills up the stat sheet. I love that. I look at size as well. 6'3", 230. All right, that's what I'm talking about. 6'3", 230, and pretty athletic. He had a 95-yard interception return for a touchdown earlier this year. I want to say it was against Oregon, actually. So Francisco Mauigoa, again, just like Devontae, just like Matt Lee and Javion Cohen, he's a plug-and-play guy. You can slot him into middle linebacker to start right away. So right there, you've addressed four massive positions of need with 4 quality starters. All right, so Francisco, you can put him in the middle. You can allow a guy like Wesley Basaint, some of the younger guys like Popo, like Malik Bryant, an incoming Bobby Washington, Marcelius Pulliam, almost forgot about him. You can allow those guys to get in there and roam playing outside linebacker where you can have a reliable veteran like Mauigoa in the middle. Haven't had that in a while. You haven't had that really since Shaq Horman was here. All right, next. Branson Dean, again, kind of like Thomas Gore, little undersized, not as undersized, but he comes from a Power 5 conference. Also a guy that the coaches like. They like his work ethic. And, he's a guy that, did he have the best stats in the world? No, but he's a guy that can provide depth, a rotational guy, maybe that third guy in the rotation. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the young guys from last year's class progress, because there's going to be, some position battles on the defensive line. Next, Cam McCormick. Coming into his 8th year of eligibility, you heard that correctly, 8th year of eligibility in college. Comes from Oregon, obviously, very, very good program, a program that Mario helped build. At least what you see now at Oregon is what Mario Cristobal put 4 years of recruiting classes in and 4 years of development into. So that team that you saw this past season, a lot of it has to do with Mario. Not saying Dan Lanning isn't a good coach. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's great. But that was Mario's team, essentially. So Cam McCormick, obviously, coach knows him. 6'5", 260. Great size, check. Comes from a great program, check. Mature, obviously. Even though he had an injury-riddled career, he comes in at pretty much, 26, 27 years old, something like that. And we know he's an incredible blocker. So it's no secret why Coach Cristobal wanted him. He loves good blockers. He loves guys with size in the trenches. Imagine him, Elijah Arroyo, and a healthy Zion Nelson blocking on the edge. The run blocking that you saw against Texas A&M, that was fantastic. You'll see a return to that with these 3 guys if they can remain healthy. Next, last but not least, actually, Terry Roberts. Does he come from a good program? Yes, he comes from Iowa. Check. Size? Doesn't really have the size, 5'10", 195 pounds, but built pretty solid. He's physical. So he doesn't check off the size box, but does he put in work? Does he hustle? Does he play hard? Does he pass the eye test? I think it's a yes. The short time that he was the starter, received a 79.9 coverage grade at Iowa. Now, we know at Iowa, they play in the Big Ten. They play big boy football over there. And Iowa has been known for their defense for the longest time. So comes from a good culture. I think is a good culture fit. Again, you're getting rid of guys or, guys are exiting the program that maybe weren't a culture fit and you're replacing them with these guys. Are they superstars? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. I see Terry Roberts as a guy that, if not a starter, he can slot in at least as a rotational guy. He will get a lot of playing time, in my opinion. And at the very least can be a weapon on special teams. So all in all, I think these are great pickups. I consider it quality over quantity, to be honest with you. We have the summer and, the upcoming fall. There's going to be other periods for players to enroll that they can transfer over. So we have a chance to pick up more guys. I think we're going to pick up at least one wide receiver, maybe two. I think we're going to pick up a veteran quarterback. I think you have to pick up a running back because depth is kind of lacking there. You have a lot of uncertainty. Even though I'm excited about the young backs, there's some uncertainty there. But, you got defensive tackle. You got Jamel Howard, I think is his name. This kid that's 6'3", 320 pounds. He's visiting this weekend. That's a dude, unlike Dean and Thomas Gore, I think that's a dude that can slot into the two deep and be a high rotational guy and get a lot of snaps. He at least has the size for it, so let's see. And then, of course, Jaheim Singletary is a guy that's floating out there. I've heard anything from he's not interested in the program, he's not even looking at Miami, to Miami's in the lead. I've heard Miami's got momentum. I heard Miami's losing momentum. I've heard everything you can think of in like the last 3 days alone. So I'm just kind of sitting back and just seeing what happens. Let's see what else news that's happened. Tysheem Johnson, he has chosen Oregon. He's that safety from Ole Miss. Wish him the best over there. I'm sure he's going to do great. He was one of the top-rated safeties in the 2021 class. Really wanted him. He's a guy that could have added depth to that safety room. I love our starting safeties, but I'm concerned about the depth there. All right, so all in all, looking back, man, look, we got our starting left guard, in my opinion. This is my way too early predictions. We got our starting left guard, starting center, starting middle linebacker, and a starting corner, possibly a second starting corner. You just addressed up to 5 starting positions with the 8 scholarship guys we just brought in. I think that's quality, man. And you know what? I think there's more to come. So again, take a deep breath. Don't listen to the noise. Be patient. And let's see what happens in the spring. Because in addition to these guys, you got to develop the talent you have. And that's what we've been lacking at the University of Miami. So I'm going to stop here. There's going to be more videos to come, more content. I'm going to be way more active now that the spring football is going to be starting soon. I might be going back to doing some lives again, maybe not on a certain day of the week, but I will be doing them more often. But in the meantime, guys, have a good night. I'm going to go and enjoy my cafecito. Cheers. As always, go Canes.